will be it.
Michigan Weekend, show number 59.
Hi there, I'm Fred Trost. I'm glad you joined me for this edition of Michigan Weekend. Kathy Fleck is off this week, so that gives me a chance to sit here and chat with my old pal Howard Shelly. Howard, you worked for Morton F. for many years, a wildlife photographer, hunter, fisherman. What do you have in store for us today?
Well, Fred, being October, there's no better time to go to the Northwoods, and that's my favorite spot. So let's think about woodcocks and rough grouse, meaning pats and timberdoodles.
It's going to be a great story. We're also going to talk about how we can cook these grouse. We have a recipe which we'll cook up in our camper right there for elegant grouse. It's just an outstanding recipe. Also, we'll pick up on a few details of the new Big Buck contest. Michigan Weekend is brought to you in part by your one-stop shopping store, Meyer Thrifty Acres, and by Michigan's leading outdoor magazine, Michigan Out of Doors. You know, with deer season just around the corner, you've got to get prepared. If you don't have a gun, you ought to pick one up. And a lot of the other accessories, too, are on sale at Meyer Thrifty Acres, so don't miss it. Hot seats come in several colors and sizes, but this week the red and fluorescent regular sizes are on sale for only $1.88. With a coupon from the Meyer One-Stop Shopper, it's 50 cents off any box of center fire ammunition in stock. And here's a real bargain for deer hunters. The Remington Model 742 Woodsmaster semi-automatic rifle, clip magazine, the receiver is tapped and drilled for a scope, only $217. You can't beat that price. Check out the wide selection and why pay more prices on all the hunting gear in the sporting goods department at Meyer Thrifty Acres. Talking with Howard Shelly is always a treat. He has such vast experience in the outdoors, filming for many years with Morton F. And today, Howard, you brought some film with you on ruffed grouse, and a magnificent specimen here. Ruffed grouse like this, you're liable to see in the woods in this posture in the spring, right?
Oh, very typical in the spring, May, and it's an ideal time to do good dog work, both on ruffed grouse and especially those that are interested in banding some woodcock in the spring. Working in the aspen and the typical brush areas is an ideal time to see them, and of course it's the perfect habitat for those birds.
Well, let's go to your film, Howard, and learn a little bit about grouse and woodcock.
Well, here's that scene of a ruffed grouse on a drumming log. And frequently in the spring, you may hear that strange noise. It sounds somewhat like a farmer's gasoline engine as it putt-putt-putts away. And then as you search around, you find tracks in the sand along a backwoods trail. You see the birds. And if you're quiet, you may be fortunate in getting a picture of them. But then, to go one step farther, let's look into the big Northwoods, where it's a very typical habitat area, and that ruffed grouse will return to the same log, the same spot on that log, and of course it's known as the drumming log, and that means May, when he's trying to find a mate, and at periods of about every 4 minutes, you'll hear that strange, prolonged drumming of the ruffed grouse. It only takes 8 or 10 seconds each time, and somehow or other he will find that female. A new family will soon be on its way. And then it was only shortly thereafter, in searching through the woodlands, when we come upon what we know now as Crazy Sam. I'm sure those that's interested in ruffed grouse have heard of the very many peculiar things that happens in the spring of the year. Somehow or other, frequently they're attracted to a strange noise or sound. And in this case, just our merely driving the car along a backwoods country trail attracted the ruffed grouse, and he'd come out to the point where actually we were within 6 or 8 or 10 feet of him on many occasions. Not just once, but several times. Easy to get up close enough to get a good picture of him. And then finally he would slowly disappear back into the bush. And again, during May, you'll hear that drumming noise repeated time and time and again. That means he's searching for and looking for a mate. And it's shortly after that, in searching through the backwoods, that we come across an old bent-over pine stump, and down at the bottom, right beneath the edge of the ground, there is Mrs. Ruffed Grouse on the nest. Already 8 or 10 eggs in that nest. And within another 3 or 4 weeks, 23, 24, 25 days, we'll have a brand new family of baby ruffed grouse throughout the area. Now let's go along with our good friend Tom Prodzic and that famous old English setter, Rock, and put on a demonstration as he's searching for woodcock and grouse during the month of May on a little experimental project of banding the birds. Rock is one of the greatest.
Well, Tom, of course, Rock is not alive anymore, his great gun dogs, but he does have other dogs now, and you know, he's one of the top woodcock banders in the state every year.
Yes.
Bands
At one time, he banded over 400 in one spring and gained a national recognition for his work in banding woodcock.
This is just part of the much research that's done in Michigan on wildlife.
Right, right. Typically of Rock, he likes to mosey across that stream, but if you'll watch closely here in the shin tangle of tag alders, frequently he'll go on a point, and maybe Tom won't be able to get there in time, but Rock will do his utmost to hold that point. Now here you see he'd pointed a woodcock. Then the Mrs. Woodcock flew away before Tom actually got close enough to slap the net down and catch the bird. Now let's move into this area. Rock is right on the scented trail of a woodcock. And a beautiful point. Seldom will you see anything quite like the next scene that you're going to see right here, because Rock has that woodcock pinned down to the point. The bird is less than 10 or 11 inches from the end of Rock's nose.
Right on top of it.
How about that?
That takes restraint to train a dog that way that can
Then, of course, the bird goes fluttering away. Now, nearby is an area where Tom refers to it as the evening dancing ground. On the way again, suddenly, a grouse right in front of him, and he can't resist the temptation to make another good point. We see the grouse moving slowly about. Rock gets a little bit closer, and the bird flies away. But this is where the woodcock put on their evening show for the females. They'll fly high in the sky, dart, and then almost dive straight down to the ground in such areas as this, which is real close to good woodcock cover. It's something that takes place every spring during the mating season of the woodcock.
Well, the birds at that time of year are rather reckless, like Crazy Sam is. A little easier to get close to. In the fall, it's a different story.
Different story entirely.
Howard Shelley's going to be back in just a minute with some tips on hunting ruffed grouse. There's another place you can get some good tips on hunting. This month happens to be a special deer issue, Michigan Out of Doors. And if you're a new subscriber, you can get it for half price this month. Just listen. Nautical maps for sailors and power boaters, lake maps especially for fishermen, topographical maps for backpackers and hikers, county maps for anyone who travels, a trout stream directory for anglers, and the wildlife chef for anyone who enjoys good food. Where do you get these publications? The details are in Michigan Out of Doors each month. For new subscribers, a special half price off this month, only $3.75 for 12 issues. Send your check to Michigan Out of Doors, Lansing 48909. This offer expires October 31st, so subscribe today. Well, Howard, these little grouse that we see drumming in the spring are quite different birds in the fall. We see a little bird about this size zinging through the trees. Awfully tough bird to hit for hunters. How about giving you some lessons here on where to find grouse and how to bag them?
Oh, I should be pleased to, Fred. And let's just go along with my good friend Tom Prodzik and his dog, and you'll see some real action. But where do you go to find them? Well, here we see my wife, Ruth, and our two springers in an area where there are a lot of small crab apples and choke cherries and wild grapes. So you go where the food is. And invariably, that's where you're going to find some of the ruffed grouse and woodcock. And just like you or me, if we're hungry, we're going to a place like that where there's some food. And we'll do that with our expedition into the woods today in searching for ruffed grouse and woodcock.
Of course, it's important this year with ruffed grouse because of the various pockets around the state, the populations are a little lower.
That's right. In many areas, they're very, very low. But as an illustration, late one afternoon along the backwoods trail that I was familiar with the fact that there was some clover planted along that trail. I shot this excellent ruffed grouse, and I decided I could tell from the feel of the crop of the bird that it was just full. And I opened the crop, and it was full of fresh clover leaves, definitely tying down what that bird had eaten for his evening meal. Not just 2 or 3 leaves, but the crop was just stuffed full of that fresh food. So again, go to find and go to search for your birds in an area where there's good food. Now let's get right into the bush country with Tom Prodzic and this famous Old Rock. And of all the dogs that I have seen or worked with and back of, I'd have to say that Old Rock was just one of the greatest of all times. And here again, along with my longtime friend Art Hutchings, we're going into an area south of Atlanta a little ways, into what the hunter refers to as typical scrub country, meaning there's some aspen, maple, oak, and a lot of shintangle, and it's in areas like that, and it's in areas just like that that you will find the foods that we've been talking about. But just watch Rock and his hunting mate, Lady, because the two finest bird dogs that I've ever crossed trails with in my life. And invariably when Old Rock goes on point and Lady backs him, as you saw in the previous scene, out goes the Woodcock, and Tom's an excellent shot, uses that model 37 Ithaca, and usually the rough grouse and the woodcock hunter will use shot of size 7.5 or 8, sometimes 9. And they'll use a modified choke on the barrel, or perhaps cylinder improved, giving them a good wide pattern, because here you must shoot fast, you must shoot quick. But take your time, move along slowly, watch the dogs, and you're just almost assured of some action when you get into good pat and timberdoodle country.
Of course, the dog work on dogs like this is one of the most enjoyable things of hunting.
That's the rewarding part. A hunter can go afield and come home empty-handed, but he has had the thrill and the pleasure and the joys of working with good dogs, and certainly you have to classify these dogs as good ones, as I'm positive of. But not only will they point their game, most of the time Old Rock will make the retrieve and fetch right back, and then the hunter may have the privilege of examining that bird. And of course, from the woodcock standpoint, you haven't got a lot of flesh there like a great big rooster pheasant, but still it's a very choice edible item. On the wing again, and down they come. We'd had a real good day here in the area south of Atlanta, and as we come in, another retrieve, and Tom pays credit and gives Old Rock a thank you for a good job, well performed. And finally back to the car, and you know, after you've hunted them all day, dogs are just like the next one. How about something to eat? And Tom always has that little scrap there for them.
Boy, I tell you, the dogs just really make an enjoyable trip, though.
Can't beat it.
Well, Howard, that's just excellent. Some good tips on ruffed grouse and woodcock hunting. And of course, the reports I've gotten this fall is that the grouse populations are down in many areas, but in some areas they are up, and this is throughout the state. Woodcock seem to be very high populations.
Right.
Hunters are finding, in fact, in about the last part of October here, the migration should be peaking in most parts of the state. Should be some good hunting. Well, Howard, thanks for coming by and giving us these tips. Okay, you get a ruffed grouse, or maybe some lucky hunter gives you one. What do you do with it? Hey, I have the greatest recipe going for ruffed grouse. What we'll do is we'll head for our camper here in the kitchen, and we'll cook up a recipe that is just incredible. It is so good you won't believe it. This can be used for grouse or quail or for even chicken breasts. It's just an excellent recipe. And what we'll need is some mushroom soup, some flour, a little rice to go along with it in the appropriate pans. And for spices, we'll have some pepper, and instead of salt, we'll use garlic salt. Not garlic powder, garlic salt. And we'll go to the refrigerator, pull out a couple more ingredients here. What we'll need is some fresh mushrooms, along with some sour cream, and some white wine. Now this wine, by the way, is Michigan wine. Keep your eye out for some of these Michigan products you can patronize. Now let's see. I have everything there except the most important thing, the meat. Better make a call here to see if we can line up some grouse. Let's see, we've got the number. See, Wilbur has a delivery service I just learned about. Wilbur has been trying to improve himself, get a job, improve his skills in the outdoors, and he said, yeah, I got some, he said, I don't have grouse, but I do have some quail. So after that conversation, I said, well, send it to me, because I'm right in the middle of this recipe. What we do is we take the sour cream. Now this is a ½ pint of sour cream, and you want to mix it with 4 tablespoons of flour. So you're going to pre-mix these until it's smooth. Okay, it doesn't take long before it's nice and smooth. Then we can add the other ingredients. We'll mix everything together here except for the grouse or quail, chicken breasts, whatever. We'll put in 1 cup of wine. And this will, of course, thin out the mixture a bit and give it a really nice little taste. Also add a can of mushroom soup. That's a whole can, undiluted, don't add any milk or anything, the straight mushroom soup. You know, doggone it, it's about time to get that bird here. Get on the phone now. Come on, Wilbur. He said he had trouble locating the camper. I mean, I do move around a lot and cook on location, but he said he was going to bring it to me. I'm right by the woodlot there. Doggone it. You better get it here in time. Okay, there we go with the mushroom soup. And to that, we'll add some garlic salt. Just, you know, a 1/4 teaspoon, something like that, whatever looks decent. And some pepper. Shake it in there and mix all of those ingredients together. That's going to be the sauce that we pour over our bird. And here he comes, Wilbur's delivery service. Well, Wilbur hasn't changed much over the summer. Still has trouble getting his pack off, loaded with all sorts of ridiculous gear, but there it is. He has our fresh game, well, actually, it's frozen game, delivered it from quite a distance. Puts his pack back on. You notice he's cleaned up his act. He got some glasses, he got a nose job, grew a nice little mustache, takes off on his bike. He didn't even tell me he was there. I didn't get a chance to talk with him, so he set the bird on the back step bumper. Doggone that guy. He has his problems, but I'm glad he delivered the meat. Now, as I said, this could be grouse, because grouse have nice white meat. They're a white-meated bird. So are quail. They're very good. And so are chicken breasts. They're also excellent in this recipe. But Wilbur delivered all the way from the south for quail. I say from the south because this past winter was so devastating on many of our game birds in Michigan that the quail season is eliminated. This was sent from Mississippi. Got a hold of this from some friends. And these are what quail look like when they're plucked. And these are split down the back. So the whole bird is there, just scrumptious white meat. You take your meat and pour the mixture we made out of the sour cream and wine over them, and then put them in the oven. You're going to want to bake this in the oven at 350 degrees for an hour and a half. Now, if the meat is such that it sticks up, any part of it sticks out of the sauce, you'll want to baste it a little bit during the cooking. I will also put together a few other items here. So a green vegetable is good, maybe some peas. How about that, a cherry pie? That'd be kind of nice. It's a nice thing about a camper like this. I can cook everything in that little oven. In fact, you really don't need too much in the way of camping equipment. Oh, look at that, Saugatuck, Michigan, cherry pie. Michigan is a red tart cherry capital of the world. Lots of good products like that in the state. There it is, some rice. Cook up some rice. Add the fresh mushrooms to the topping after you take the bird out of the oven. It's been in there an hour and a half. Put fresh mushrooms right on top. You don't have to cook them. Seems like it might be good to put them under for 5 or 10 minutes, but believe me, they're great when they're fresh. Just mix that sauce in with them. And now let's taste it. This is quail, southern quail, which would be very similar to grouse. Oh boy, dandy, dandy food. So tasty. The grouse, of course, is moist because it's been in that mixture cooking for the whole time. Boy, it's scrumptious with maybe some brown rice, maybe some peas, good crispy peas, cup of milk. Oh boy, what a meal, and easy to cook. Now we'll put that cherry pie, dish that out. What a perfect ending for what could really be a traditionally Michigan meal. Get a little ice cream on the top. By the way, you know, if you want a copy of this recipe booklet, Michigan Fall Recipes, pick it up from Meyer Thrifty Acre Sporting Goods Department, or you can find it in Michigan Out of Doors Magazine, November issue. All the recipes are right there. And if you want... Where is it that Michigan's deer hunters take the big bucks? Where have they taken them in the past few years? Well, who knows? This year, we have Michigan Weekend televised big buck contest, so we're going to find out where the big racks were taken and how big they were. Now, this is what you have to do to enter. You should pick up an entry blank from any Meyer Thrifty Acre Sporting Goods department, or you can find it also in the November issue of Michigan Out of Doors. Now, this entry blank really explains the simple rules. Number one, when your buck is tagged, get verification from a law enforcement officer, a Meyer employee, a DNR employee, to verify that it was legally tagged this year. Secondly, the score, the maximum outside spread added to the number of points on the rack, and that's your score for the big buck. Now, the person who gets the biggest buck gets his choice of the 7 prizes we have. We have a Mossberg 12-gauge shotgun with an extra slug barrel. We have a Ruger 30-06 single shot. We have a Marlin Model 336 30-30, a Remington 742 30-06 semi-automatic. We also have for archers an Outers Stinger compound bow. We have for muzzle loaders, if somebody's interested in that, a Thompson Center Hawken 50 caliber muzzle loading rifle kit. And here's probably what many people will regard as the grand prize. This is a Model 94 Winchester Antlered Game Commemorative 30-30, a beautiful gun. So, pick up those entry blanks and enter. It's free, doesn't cost anything, and you might win the big buck contest. Now it's from buck hunters to duck hunters. Here's some good news. The flight ducks have begun arriving already in the Upper Peninsula. A lot more cold weather will push them right through, all the way down to the Lower Peninsula. Now the mushroom crop has been really low in the UP, but southern Michigan reports almost a bumper crop in mushrooms. The grouse have had some weak spots on the east side of the state, but overall, Herb Johnson at the DNR reports that it's probably going to be a better grouse year this year than was expected. As far as fishing goes, the salmon have moved into the streams all around the state, so this is where the fishing is concentrated. Well, we hope you can get outdoors this weekend. It's a great place to be. We'll see you next week.